The rhythmic hum of the air conditioner was the only sound in our bedroom, a stark contrast to the silent storm brewing within me. Holly lay beside me, her back to me, illuminated by the pale blue glow of her phone. I pretended to sleep, my breathing slow and deliberate, while my eyes, just a sliver open, tracked her every move. I'd been suspicious for months, the late nights at work, the secretive smiles at her phone, the way she'd flinch when I'd touch her. It wasn't the Holly I knew, the woman I had pledged my life to. The woman I loved. The telltale click of a sent message broke the silence. My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming in my gut. I knew, without a doubt, she was texting him. Her lover. This clandestine affair, a vile stain on the canvas of our marriage, was about to be brought into the harsh light of reality. I reached for my own phone, a move so practiced now that it was almost automatic. I unlocked it with a glance and opened my camera app, carefully angling it to capture the messages on her screen. She had her phone tilted slightly away from me, but I knew this angle well, an angle I'd memorized from weeks of quiet surveillance. It was almost poetic, the sheer level of detail I knew about her deception. I zoomed in, the digital lens my unlikely ally in this cruel theater of betrayal. My breath caught in my throat as the words coalesced on the screen. A string of heart emojis, followed by a message, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love." I felt a physical pain, a searing burn in my chest, like someone had plunged a hot knife into my heart. My fingers trembled as I typed my response on my own phone. I chose my words carefully, each one a sharpened blade. "Holly, I think we need to talk." I hit send and watched, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The change in her was immediate. It was as if she had been stung by a bee. She went white, her body stiffening as she spun around to face me, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and shock. The color drained from her face, leaving her cheeks pale and her lips bloodless. The phone slipped from her grasp and landed with a soft thud on the duvet. "Wah, what are you doing?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "I think you know what I'm doing, Holly," I replied, my voice calm, unnervingly so, even to myself. "I've been watching you. I've been waiting for you to slip up." I held up my phone, displaying the clear picture of her text message on the screen. She tried to grab it, but I pulled it away, holding it out of reach. She was a mess. Her eyes darted frantically around the room, as if searching for an escape route. She began to cry, tears streaming down her face, mascara smudging and creating dark streaks on her cheeks. "It's not what it looks like," she whimpered, the classic line of a guilty person caught in the act. I laughed, a hollow, humorless sound that echoed in the quiet room. "Really, Holly, what does it look like then?" I pushed myself up in bed, looking at her with a coldness I never knew I possessed. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been betraying me, laughing behind my back with some other man." I got out of bed, the wooden floor cold beneath my feet. I walked over to my closet, pulling out a backpack. "Pack your things, Holly. I want you out of my house." Her crying intensified, but I didn't let it get to me. This wasn't about sympathy. This was about justice. "Where do you think you are going?" she asked, her voice now thick with desperation, a far cry from her previous bravado. I didn't answer. I walked past her out of the bedroom and headed towards the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator, pulling out a water bottle. I then pulled my car keys and wallet from the counter. "I'm going to go deal with things, Holly." "Please don't, please," she begged, but I didn't stop. I left the house without a backward glance. I knew his name, thanks to my little digital surveillance project. Brandon. It was a common name, but finding him had been disturbingly easy. Social media, it seemed, was a goldmine of infidelity evidence. He worked at a local tech company. My plan was forming as I drove. I arrived at his office building just as the morning rush was beginning. I had a few hours to plan. I parked my car across the street, watching the revolving doors, waiting for him to arrive. The wait was agonizing, each passing minute an eternity. When he finally emerged from a black sedan, his face illuminated by the early morning sun, I felt a surge of anger that was almost primal. He walked with a swagger, his steps confident and carefree, oblivious to the storm brewing in his future. I waited for him to enter the building and then I went in. The lobby was all glass and steel, but I saw him at the reception desk, signing in and chatting to the receptionist. He was smiling, a wide, arrogant smile. I approached him slowly, my steps measured and deliberate. When I was a few feet behind him, I said, "Brandon." He turned, his smile faltering as he looked at me. I could see the confusion in his eyes, quickly morphing into recognition and then fear. I could taste his terror, it was delicious. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice guarded. "I'm Holly's husband," I replied, my voice low and dangerous. I saw the color drain from his face, he knew what was coming. He stammered, I don't know what you're talking about." The receptionist looked at us with growing curiosity, but I didn't care. I was done playing games. I launched at him, my fist connecting with his jaw, sending him sprawling to the floor. The impact echoed loudly in the silent lobby. His nose was gushing blood, staining the polished floor. I straddled him, raining down punches on him, each one fueled by weeks of betrayal and heartbreak. I could see the fear and pain in his eyes, and it was like balm to my wounded soul. Security rushed over to stop me, and I didn't resist. I was taken away in handcuffs, but it didn't matter. As I was being escorted out of the lobby, I saw him trying to stand up, his face swollen and covered in blood, and I saw the fear in his eyes. He would never forget that. I knew that his carefully constructed world was crashing down around him. The embarrassment he would face, the shame that Holly had brought to me, now I was able to share with him. I spent the night in jail, but the feeling of satisfaction was almost euphoric. I called my lawyer in the morning. The charges were minor, and my lawyer seemed confident I wouldn't face any real consequences. By the time I got home, Holly was gone. The house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaotic events of the previous 24 hours. I walked through each room, each one a painful reminder of what we had lost. It was finally over. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind a jumble of emotions. I had lost everything, but in a way, I had also found something. A sense of myself, of my own strength and resolve. I knew now that I wouldn't be broken by this. I would pick up the pieces, and I would rebuild. And maybe one day, I would be able to forgive, but I would never forget. The cold, hard truth of betrayal would always be a part of me. But it would also be a reminder that I had survived, that I had fought back. And in the end, that was all that truly mattered.